Each week I'll be bringing you an update on the development of Silverstream, and I'll be talking to the partner companies who are working hard on making the Silverstream vision a reality. For John and Fred, developing large-scale projects is their family business. They began working together in early 2000, working on projects in Australia, but for John, the family business began much earlier.
My grandfather started in 1956, building a small shopping centre, and then my mother went on to larger shopping centres, and then we came to New Zealand. And Fred's been in development and building for all his life as well. So we've had a bit of time doing this work and a few grey hairs.
Yes, we've been together for about 12, 13 years now, really starting off as a family friendship. Discovering that we had varying skill sets that overlaid with each other was actually quite dynamic and actually complementary. So we thought, well, let's work on a few projects here as opposed to just in Australia. And yeah, we started off at Sticks Mill Country Club, and the opportunities have come our way, and we've really looked at this project as really a flagship for the family business.
I asked Davis Ogilvie about the fast track of Silverstream.
So there's two lots to the fast track. The first was getting the plan rezoned, or the land rezoned. That was done by rewriting a rule in the district plan called Residential 7, which basically took into account all of Silverstream. So that enabled the land to have a zoning that could be developed. Once that was underway, there was a memorandum of understanding drawn up between Environment Canterbury, Waimak District Council, Sierra and H Investments Limited. And that was basically an agreement where they all got around the table and said, right, we've got to get this thing through as fast as we can. We all need to work together in everyone's best interests to get sections available and house sites available for construction. So it basically meant that the normal rules from the Resource Management Act and normal processes that we go through were not so much relaxed, like the same standards were met, but they were allowed to go along concurrently. So we didn't need to get subdivision consents before engineering approval and before construction. It could all happen at the same time, all in accordance with the appropriate standards and good engineering practice and good surveying practice.
The job was fast-tracked through the Sierra process. That gave us a time frame of 18 months to deliver 550 sections. Anyone that knows construction means that's a pretty hard task in anyone's language. The job had a number of complexities, predominantly due to known flood hazards. So it meant we had to do a significant amount of earthworks over that time frame to deliver the sections. And in fact, over 300,000 cubes of material were shifted to create suitable building platforms and to manage the flood risk. And certainly you'll notice the subdivision sits in some areas a couple of metres above the existing Kaiapoi township to ensure we've got appropriate mitigation. We obviously had geotechnical constraints, and over that time frame we had a lot of changing standards as the earthquake led to changing design standards and codes of practice. So it was certainly an evolving project, and we were pleased to deliver those lots as per the MOU with Sierra.
Silverstream has been an interesting project from 2 points of view. The first one would be the time. With such short time frames, because the job has been done so quickly, it's been really important that all the teams talk a lot and compare their designs. So one of the main issues there that we had to make sure was done was making sure that our structural engineers were talking to the civil guys and vice versa to get those designs to all match in. One of those areas would have been the electrical undergrounding near the commercial area. We've got all our foundations, the civil engineers have got all their services and such in the site, as well as the undergrounding of the cables, and in some places they were all wanting to go in the same place, so it's really making sure everyone talks to make sure it all fits in and still works properly.
This is the commercial block. It's the retail precinct for the Silverstream Village. As you can see, we're doing quite a lot of site work here already. We've actually built the platform up to grade. So what that means is we can actually come straight in and start working regardless of what the weather conditions are. There's other parts of the city at the moment that are quite wet and building sites are pretty hard to get to. But what we have now is basically a dry all-weather site that we can come straight in and get underway with our construction.
So what's he doing? He's digging holes at the moment?
Yes, so the main part of our building, we've actually got 3 buildings that form part of the commercial precinct, and the predominant building or primary building runs parallel to Silverstream Boulevard here. So what we're doing at the moment is we're just excavating out our foundations, preparing the foundation and the shutters or the boxing, and we'll be pouring concrete, putting steel and pouring concrete, and that process is happening over the next 3 weeks, with the intention being that we will actually have the foundations complete for the main part of the building within 4 months. So it's quite a significant building program. The overall building program is around about 65 weeks, but then we are building 4,000 square metres of building.
That's what it's going to look like.
Yeah, as you can see the bookend on the end, and then we come up into the 2-storey element of it. So we'll have offices up on that first floor. The gull wing is a good use of different building products and materials.
Yeah, I like the schist look too, that's good.
Yeah, look, it is. Bit of schist, bit of cedar, and a lot of glass.
Construction has a good relationship with the Waimakariri Council.
Strengthened through Silverstream, absolutely. The Silverstream development was developed through a memorandum of understanding, of which Waimak was a key player in that. So the ties and the relationships were certainly reinforced going through that sort of procurement model where everything's running sort of in parallel. You know, design was running in parallel, consenting was running in parallel, and everybody was on the same page to get it done. You know, and that really forges some really great relationships.
The Rangiora Bowling Club Pavilion at the corner of Blackett and Good Street was the last of the large wooden buildings to be built in Rangiora, and at 103 is now possibly the oldest building in town. The pavilion was designed by William Wadey and built by John Golding in 1911 at a cost of £945. The pavilion was officially opened on the 28th of October that same year. The Rangiora Bowling Club Pavilion has been renovated and earthquake strengthened, with some of the work being done by club members. The building has an Historic Place Category 2 registration and is given landmark status in April 2012. The impressive wooden pavilion has spacious open and glass balconies that look out over the greens. The building is used for a range of activities and events such as the Rangiora Art Society Spring Exhibition.
The first step was to break into the subfloor, investigate what was under there, and what we found was absolutely perfect. It was lovely. The workmanship was good, or better than good. The quality of the timber was excellent. And that filled us with a bit of confidence to carry on and do the rest of the building. And as we went on, it proved that the rest of it had been very nicely built. It was a lovely job. When you go into these things and you don't know what you're up for, you think of all the bad things. And they just didn't happen. They were good. One part of the building had obviously sunk, but it was just that a plate had rotted out. The building itself was quite sound. Jack it up, put a new plate under, and all done. We had to temporarily brace it, remove all the existing linings, lath and plaster, which is why it was necessary to brace it. We then sprayed it for borer. Then it was lined with plywood, 10mm plywood, right through for bracing purposes, and then lined with gypboard and finished off in the usual way. all the glass had to be replaced to bring it up to the current code. It's a public building, so therefore it has to be safety glass. So those larger panes are $1,000 each. Inside upstairs we have left. To embark on that would run us into big dollars, principally with fire requirements. The downstairs we've turned into a lounge, and it's come up to be quite attractive and in keeping with its age.
There were actually three different funds that were used to pay for the renovations, and it was a case of allocating which work to which fund. The club had spent nearly $40,000 getting the consents and everything to get it done, and that's where Maurice Franklin came in. When we sat down at the table and redid the finances, we found out that he was right. Well, it was being used, of course, with three different clubs. Initially, it was a sporting club, and there was a billiard in the area now that we call the social room. There was a billiard tables in there, and then for a good many years it had a bowls tables in it, but it was used. I can remember in the 1940s being going to social occasions upstairs in there. It was commonly used for 21st birthday parties and things, so that it has always been used by the community for more than just sporting events.
A project of this size requires someone to look after the suppliers, negotiating with suppliers, obtaining the best possible prices when you're working within a budget of a limited amount of money. So obtaining the best possible deals makes sure available funds go further. So I suppose it's best to say that my role was not involvement with the hammers and the nails, but in negotiating with suppliers. In my years in the Rangiora Bowling Club, we have taken on two major projects. One was the building of a synthetic green, which I was the project manager of. The funds involved in that was approaching $250,000. We then move on to the project which we're talking about today, the old restoring the pavilion, which once again ran into the vicinity of $250,000. So that's the two major things which have happened in our club over my length of time as a member, which is something like 22, 23 years. We had a policy where a lot of these companies advertise with us as sponsors of the club, so in turn we go out of our way to support those people when we're making purchases. The Waimakariri District Council recognised a number of buildings in the town which are considered to be heritage buildings. This pavilion of ours is a landmark building of the town. It is recognised as such, and the council have placed a plaque on it acknowledging the significance of the pavilion to the town.
Whatever happened to the house that used to be here on the corner of Leinster and Papanui Roads? You may remember the house as the little Indian restaurant, but Leinster House had a life before being a great eatery. The house was designed by Christchurch architect James G. Glanville and built in 1900 for Andrew Fuller Carey, a businessman and local body councillor who lived in the property until 1905. In 2006, following an 8-year battle by heritage advocates to retain Leinster House in its original location, the large 2-storey timber building with its octagonal turret and double-storied bay windows was cut into 4 sections and transported to Cust.
Well, it was in Leinster Road, and it was this is Leinster House. I was looking for a house to move, and I went with King's Building Removals, and they one day Mr. King said to me, "Oh, it might be being moved," and all of a sudden I just had this overwhelming passion to get the house. I moved it in 2006, just 4 days before Christmas. Had it still been on site in situ, it would have probably fallen apart in the earthquake. I think if a man saw it, he'd go, I'm not touching that, too much work. But being a woman, I wasn't aware of everything that was needing done on it, and I just loved the house. And I've always wanted a house that had historical value, and I just felt it was a horrible place. It was sitting on a tiny bit of asphalt with no beautiful gardens around it, and as well. And no, I just got this overwhelming passion, and if I get that, if I go for something, I get it. There was quite a lot of work we had to do, and we got it. We certainly had to re-roof, and when I moved it, there was a lot of money needed spent just strengthening, and we've done a lot of that. But I do believe it would have fallen apart and not been there. So maybe that's why I had to move it, because it's one of the special places of Christchurch, and it's still here and it's still alive. And
the journey of Leinster House to the 50-acre site in Cust was not an easy one.
That was fun. So that happened we arrived about 1 o'clock in the morning eventually, but we went on the trucks, and that was cool. The kids and I went on the trucks and travelled and were there on the journey, and that was pretty cool. Watching them tilt the house to go over traffic lights, and everybody was Christmas shopping. It was Thursday before Christmas, and I think Christmas was about Sunday that year, and everybody was Christmas shopping, and we were coming out, and the house came out in 4 pieces over 2 nights. So, and we had just paddocks there, and we had the culvert in so it could come over the stream, but we had to take down all the deer fencing and just bring it across. And it was quite cool. There were 4 bits of house sitting in the paddocks. It was, and watching the Titan cranes put it back together was pretty amazing, really. Because I think we left between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. And so being summer, it was still very light when we were leaving from and coming out onto Papanui Road. And then we went all the way down through the main part of Papanui past Northland Shopping Mall. So lots of people saw it. I think we were here about 1 o'clock, and that was parked in the paddocks. And the next day they brought it on through and up to here. And then they began the process of putting the lower stories together, and then it was about 2 or 3 days, and then they put the next ones on top. This is now on 50 acres. I mean, gosh, much better than a wee piece of tar seal in the middle of Christchurch.
Following the Christchurch earthquake in 2010, many people from the damaged residential areas of the city faced the prospect of accepting government payouts and relocating to somewhere that offered a safer alternative to city life. For some, that meant a move to North Canterbury. Many North Canterbury towns experienced a significant population increase as a result of the housing shortage caused by part in the loss of thousands of homes damaged or demolished following the Christchurch earthquake. Rangiora is one rural town that had to readjust to a new normal. 4 years on, Rangiora is already well into its rebuild.
The impact of the earthquakes as a result, on Greater Christchurch, and including in the loss of residential stock in Kaiapoi, has meant a significant upturn in residential building activity in the district overall. So in 2013 we were up 200% over our normal level of new home consenting. And we probably peaked, but we've seen new housing opportunities open up more in Pegasus and Rangiora, in Kaiapoi, and rural residential development. and now starting around the Woodend area. So that's been both an opportunity that people have taken, displaced as a result of the earthquakes from Christchurch, people in the district needing accommodation, but it's also been a challenge for the District Council in terms of its consenting processes, and our team has worked pretty hard to keep all of that inside the required timeframes, and have done a great job in that regard. As I say, I think we've peaked, but still up on our historic levels, and that brings demand for and confidence to commercial centres like Rangiora, because the catchment is growing, and that encourages businesses who wouldn't perhaps have otherwise considered locating here to actually commit to Rangiora. So that's good.
I think the growth, the residential growth of the district is showing signs of slowing, so we're not expecting that to be quite as gangbusters as it has been over the last 2 years. But certainly, I think we'll go back to normal, where we do get normal. We will continue to get growth, but it won't be quite as fast as it has been in the last 2 years. I think the mood's pretty positive. The mood's particularly positive in Kaiapoia because people see building happening. I think it's changing in Rangiora. There was a lot of feeling around about the closure of the farmers affecting other businesses, which is true, of course. It was the main straw of the town, but the knowledge that farmers is definitely coming back has helped, and the old building has now been demolished. People are seeing progress, and while it's going to be a while before those new buildings are up, quite frankly, central Rangiora, early part of next year will just be a building site.
Coming up, we look at the Rangiora Bowling Club and its 103-year-old pavilion, and whatever happened to Leinster House.